Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Laporte County Commissioners for Wednesday, July 17th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And after the pledge, we'll have a moment of silence in memory of Joe Cooper, a former member of the Laporte Human Rights Commission and who was a very active member of the Laporte community. I pledge my allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Auditor, roll call, please.
Commissioner Cora?
Present.
Commissioner Matias?
Present.
Commissioner Mrozinski?
Present.
A quorum is present.
Thank you. Consideration of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And consideration for approval of the minutes from July 1st.
Motion to approve.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Consideration of claims. Madam Auditor.
This week we have payroll ending July 5th, 2019 in the amount of $1,246,052.60 and miscellaneous claims in the amount of $765,000. Let me re-say that. $765,732.81.
Motion to approve payroll and miscellaneous claims as presented.
Support with the comment that since we have so many people present that may not always come to our meetings, that these claims are reviewed by everyone, and these are not these are normal operational costs, payroll, and all of the other equipment and materials that we normally purchase every month.
And most of it is already budgeted in. Yeah.
That's right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. And the next item on the agenda is public comment. Anyone from the public who wishes to comment, please state your name and address. Sir, before you make the public comment, Sheriff, would you like to comment on the item? Is Sheriff Boyd here in the back?
Yeah, he is.
Maybe well.
Sheriff Boyd is hiding in the back. Thanks, Sheriff. I know there is an item of interest for many members of the community, so I'd like for you to start off with some comments from you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Recently, there was a meeting in the South County Coalition, and it was publicized that part of the reason for the meeting was an enforcement blitz that the Sheriff's Office was engaged in regarding golf carts. And I can assure you, as I told a number of members of their coalition, that we did not have, in fact, the blitz. What happened was in mid-June, we received a number of complaints about golf carts being ridden through the county. The majority of the complaints that we received were specifically from the town of Union Mills and Hannah, with a handful of complaints about Saugatuck Lake and Hudson Lake. Those are the areas that traditionally we see the most amount of golf carts. And we received complaints about near collisions, about reckless driving, intoxicated driving, unsafe golf carts on the roadways, and people were asking that we do something about it. So I generated an email to our 3 patrol shifts, and I reminded them that golf carts were illegal in Laporte County with the exception of the town of Wanata, because they do have an ordinance that that allows it and regulates it. And I just asked our deputies to be mindful of that, and if they did see golf carts, especially that were driving illegally or erratically, to ask them to get off the road, and anyone else that they see, remind them that there was no ordinance, therefore they were illegal in Laporte County in the state of Indiana unless it's regulated by a municipality. So with that said, they did make a number of stops. They did stop a number of the individuals who had been pointed out that were driving recklessly. Most of those individuals were juveniles, and most of those violations were in Union Mills and Hannah. In fact, we escorted several of those young people to their homes, and we admonished their parents that they were allowing a violation. They knew that their kids were out on golf carts and that they were driving recklessly. But we also had complaints about go-karts and dirt bikes on those streets as well. So we were just enforcing Indiana code, and to the best of my knowledge, we're doing a search on it right now. You have to keep in mind that all of the tickets that we issue are electronic, and that when we issue a ticket, we don't write the ticket. They're transmitted submitted directly to the court, to the prosecutor's office, and to the state of Indiana, and we put in a request to the state to see how many tickets that we actually have written. And to the best of my knowledge, we haven't written any. We did give a number of verbal warnings. We made no arrests, and we didn't tow any golf carts, even though we could have. But again, I just want to make it clear that we did not have a blitz. We have much more important things to do than go on a blitz about golf carts. We were merely asking people to be aware of Indiana code and the way it is right now. Several years ago, we were asked by the Board of Commissioners to do a study and to report back to the board about our concerns about golf carts on our county roads, and we did that at that time. At one point, and I researched the Indiana code, I think it's since been deleted, but one of the provisions was that the sheriff or the chief of that particular municipality was required to inspect golf carts. I don't know the first thing about golf carts other than where the brake is and where the gas pedal is, and I didn't feel that I was in position or any of our deputies to do an inspection, but there are a number of other requirements that local municipalities have, and while some of their operation may be dangerous, one of the most dangerous things about golf carts is, first and foremost, most of what we're seeing are just that. They're golf carts. They're an apparatus that's designed to transport people on a golf course, not on public right-of-way. But we're seeing a lot of vehicles that are out there that don't have rear-view mirrors, that don't have taillights, that don't have brake lights, that don't have headlights. Those are important, especially when they're operating after dark. They don't have a slow-moving vehicle emblem on them. We've also researched a number of other towns in Indiana and nationwide as well that have golf cart ordinances. And as you know, some of those particular cities and towns, the main mode of transportation seems to be a golf cart. For instance, the Villages in Florida and Escondido, California, that seems to be, they have roadways and highways that are designed specifically for golf carts. But those are also areas that have the most serious bodily injury crashes and fatalities. We're concerned about keeping the public safe, and we just ask that they have the proper safety apparatus on there to ensure that the occupants and the driver are safe as well. And for people to realize that it may be fun to drive a golf cart on a golf course, there's a whole different list of responsibilities that go along with driving a golf cart on a roadway. And unfortunately, we have some parents in some of these communities that don't recognize the inherent risks of that and allow their children to drive willy-nilly throughout those communities and really wreak havoc. We are not out targeting adults who are driving responsibly, but at the same time, we have to be consistent. And merely, most of the time, what we do is we pull up to an adult who's driving within reason on a golf cart and is not drawing our specific attention, and just reminding them that until there is an ordinance, it is illegal to operate those on the roadway here in Laporte County. And it's a hot button issue, because for every person that calls and says, please leave the golf carts alone and let us drive, we have others that call and say, you need to do something about those golf carts. They're driving us crazy, and they're a danger, and they're a menace. So, we're between a rock and a hard place, and as we stand here right now, they are illegal.
Thank you, Sheriff, for putting things in perspective, and then we'll listen to the public comments. Now, thank you so much.
Good evening. I'm Alan Stevens, 5277 West, 1475 South Hannah, and I'm the, I'm the acting or the interim president of the South County Community Coalition.
Good evening. My name is Carolyn Probasco. I live at 7101 South 800 West, Westville, Indiana, and I currently serve as a director at South County Community Coalition.
In the packets I gave the commissioners and council, there's a little bit about our organization. We're a 501c4 incorporated not-for-profit, and we represent the 7 communities in the south part of the county. I guess to cut to the chase, after the recent enforcement on the golf carts, it kind of got a lot of people, particularly in South County, a little riled up. So they came to us, and then at our meeting, which we held Monday night at the Union Mills Conservation Club, we had well over 100 people in attendance, and the parking lot was full of golf carts. I'll add that too. But a show of hand, it was probably 95% of the room were golf cart owners. We're not asking for anything crazy. We'd really just kind of like to see the commissioners consider a common sense golf cart ordinance for the unincorporated portions of LaPorte County that takes safety into account, and just kind of to decriminalize something a lot of responsible adults are already out doing. In you guys' roles, you've got a hard job. I'll give you that. You more often than not, you're making people mad one way or the other. But this is a rare opportunity and a win for you guys to where you could you consider like I said, a common sense golf cart ordinance. I've also in the packet I've got our petition with 157 signatures, and I know there'll be somebody else coming up that has another petition with about that number of signatures also. I know in the past this was considered by a previous commission, and it seemed like it went to study and die, and I guess we just like it at some point a thumbs up or a thumbs down on it.
Mr. Stevens, like the sheriff said, it's not that we want to regulate anybody's life, but we want to make sure that there is safety here for individuals who are involved. So if we were to have a committee not to go and die, but to actually come up with a common sense ordinance, will you be willing to serve on it, or will the South County Coalition, would you like to participate in it?
Yes, most definitely. And that's what we're asking for on the top of our petition. Operated by licensed individuals. I mean, I'll be the first to admit children on a golf cart is a problem. Okay. Equipped with headlights, taillights, and a slow-moving vehicle sign on the back, and proper liability insurance. That's responsible adults and homeowners. I think most of us have that already. We want to cover ourselves, minimize risk, and cover any loss. I've also included a copy of the town of Wanata's ordinance and the Stark County ordinance. Marshall County has an ordinance, Kingsford Heights, Westville, and one of the lakeshore communities. I'm not sure if it's Michiana Shores or Newland Beach or one of those.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I interject?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm a Google fan, and I love Googling things and informing myself prior to coming to anything, just to make sure I'm going in the right direction. We advocate support of the Sheriff's Department, and also advocate that no matter if it's an adult or anybody that's over the age of 18, that any golf cart, any type of moving vehicle, even a bike, should not be operated while intoxicated or a person drinking liquor. So obviously we don't support anything that's going to be a public safety issue. I also want to reinforce that based on the research that I have for the state of Indiana, there are hundreds of communities, not just the ones that Alan was able to find, but hundreds of communities that have these ordinances. We're not asking to recreate the wheel. We don't want to make a lot of problems and a lot of extra work for you or the attorney here to put together something that other communities have put together that's common sense. We also feel that with the festivals coming up, that this is something that is time sensitive, because a lot of our people in our community go to the festivals, and this is their mode of transportation. And we want to make sure that they have the ability to do that when these festivals happen.
Great.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Hi, I'm Jeff Thatcher. I've lived in Hannah for 40 years, 221 East Hopper Street. I noticed about a week and a half ago the golf carts were gone, so I found out that this enforcement had started, so I called Rich. He said you should start a petition to see if we can get some kind of ruling on it. So I started one. I've got 134 signatures, and it's all for people that have valid license with insurance, that have liability coverage. Out of 18 neighbors closest to me, because I live in the town of Hannah, 13 of them have golf carts, and they all use them every week. So it would be great if we could get something figured out by Hannah Fest, which is the 9th and the 10th of August, to allow it. That's really about all I have to say about it. Should I give the petition to?
Yeah, please. Diane, if you can give it to Diane.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else from the public who would like to comment? Okay. If anybody else who wants to address regarding golf carts, and then we'll move on to other subjects. All right, please go ahead.
Mr. President, if I could, Mr. Stevens, you said you had some county ordinances as well. All I've got in my packet is Westville, Wanata, so if there are any county ordinances that you can supply, that would be helpful. I think you mentioned Stark. Oh, okay. Because, yeah, that'd be helpful if you...
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
remove fast golf carts.
Yeah, please come. Go ahead, man.
Good evening. My name is Jeanette Raymond, and I live at 0632 West Nowak Drive in Laporte, which is located in Meadowview Estates at 250 South and 75 West. And this is the second time that I've approached the county commissioners. The first time was 10 years ago, just about to the date, and I was at the Drainage Board Committee meeting last week, 2 weeks ago, and addressed them as well. We have had a flooding issue in Meadowview Estates since the fall of 2008, and it just keeps getting progressively worse. We, like I said, approached the Drainage Board and the commissioners in 2009 to try and get a solution for us. In 2008, in the fall, a couple of the residents in the south end of our subdivision started noticing that there was water in their basements and started having to pump it out. And by the spring of 2009, there were over 15 residents that were pumping water out of their basements via hoses into the streets. Several of us, about 10, did lose their finished basements, had to have interior water drainage systems put in place, and have been pumping pretty much regularly since 2009. We had a little bit of a slow period about 4 years ago, and since then it's just started up again, and this year is worse than it ever has been. We are still pumping. We actually calculated it out one evening that we pump approximately 1,377,600 gallons in a 24-hour time period out of our houses. It's a very big problem. If you come to the back of our subdivision down the last two streets, you will see water flowing on both sides of the street nonstop. You will see hoses coming from approximately, as I counted today, 31 houses being pumped out into the street. We did have the county highway department come out and check to make sure that a drainage system was actually in place and that was actually working. And Andrew Simmermeyer from the county highway did come out, and they checked everything, and there is a drainage going on, but it gets to one point and then that overflows, and then it must just come back into our houses again. I did address the drainage board, and I did let them know, yes, we do understand that the drainage board is for surface water problems. Well, like I told them, our problem is coming up from underneath our basements, and then it's getting pumped out into the street, so then it does become a drainage board problem, because then it is surface water and it's just flowing everywhere in our subdivision. And so what it's basically doing now is being pumped to a swell behind lots 42, 43, 44, 45, and 46 at the south end of the subdivision. It then gets pumped into a pond outside of the subdivision right beyond the tree line, and then that overflows, and then it starts all over again. So we are spending thousands of dollars a year in extra NIPSCO bills because we're constantly pumping 24/7 every 15 to 20 seconds. Our house alone has 3 pumps that go off every 15 seconds, 24/7. I know of one home that has 5 pumps, and even the 5 pumps didn't do that for them this spring. They just lost their basement about a month ago. It is just an ongoing problem, and back in 2009, 2010, there was a plan to try and help by putting a pumping station out there to try and get that water away from our subdivision a little bit, because it's subterranean. It is a big, huge problem. and the commissioners at that time voted against it because of the cost, but our cost is huge. I mean, my home in itself was over $40,000 in 2009, and we continue to pump, we continue to run the NIPSCO bill up, we continue to have to replace pumps maybe once a month. It is an ongoing financial hardship for the people that live out there. It is now becoming a hazard, a danger, because all of that water that's pumping out into the water that's flowing down both sides of the street on the two streets is now, because it's so hot and it's always there, it's growing algae, it's causing the street to crumble, it's causing the street to sink, it's causing our driveways to crumble, and we really need some help. And I know that there is a thought process that the Drainage Board did talk about, and I know Mr. Merzinski was at that meeting. Unfortunately, Tony Hendricks is not here tonight. He had some input on what maybe could be done, as well as Mike Pullen. He couldn't be here tonight either. But it is our hope that the commissioners will see the problem that we're having and try and help us figure out what to do, because we weren't aware of this when we built those houses out there. We weren't aware of this if we purchased houses out there. And there are so many people that are pumping that you can't just say, oh, well, you made a mistake when you built your house. You didn't investigate this or you didn't investigate that, because then you're talking to like 30 homeowners. And we all made a mistake? I don't think we all made a mistake.
No, thanks for sharing your story here. But what we'll do is we'll put together a team, and then we'll seek your input, and then we'll get back to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Before we move to another, ma'am, hold on 1 second. I think Commissioner Merzinski wanted to address the issue about the golf carts. Is there anybody else who wanted to talk about golf carts? All right, we'll go ahead. Let's go ahead.
Yeah, since I've gotten a lot of calls, I saw a lot of people at the fair, and so I started looking into it, and I've got copies of other ordinances also for Westville, all the communities we're talking about. I also have some stuff from the state, and I talked to Sheriff Boyd. I said, why don't we get a little committee together, somebody from the Sheriff's Department, I will serve on that also, and maybe a couple of citizens, which Al Stevens said he would serve, and I talked to a Union Mills resident this morning, Tammy Young. If we can get the four of us together, look at some of these ordinances, see what makes sense. Try not to make it too overbearing or intrusive, but come up with something, as the sheriff said, give me an ordinance that I can enforce. Give me something that makes sense, it's reasonable. I think we can do that. We won't get it done in a week, but I think maybe by a month we can at least have something we can take to the attorney if we can all agree on it, and have an ordinance drawn up that would address all of the community, all the unincorporated communities in the county, and something we can live with. But you're right. I mean, you live in Hannah or you live in Union Mills. When you see somebody's kids out there that are going crazy on a golf cart, you might want to step in and do something, because what's going to happen is this ordinance that we have, it will have a penalty clause. And if somebody's driving drunk or somebody's kids are out there, there's going to be a penalty. There's going to have to. That's what it's got to be. But I'm willing to sit down and put this together, and hopefully we come up with something everybody will be happy with.
And Commissioner Rosinski, other commissioners, that's why it's particularly helpful to have the Stark County ordinance, because it is more inclusive than some of the town ordinances. For instance, the Stark County ordinance is clear. No person may operate a golf cart on any county road unless the posted speed limit is 35 miles per hour or less. There are some other restrictions on here that I think the commissioners will find very helpful. And I think you do distinguish between towns, which have other issues. So any other county ordinances that could be provided to your committee would be helpful, but the Stark County ordinance is helpful. I think it's going to be very, very useful in terms of providing some guidance.
If you look at some of the information from the state, there's a list this long of things that they recommend. Some of them think are a little overkill, but most of us, when we think of a golf cart, you think of the cart that we use when we play golf. You know, there's some pretty nice looking golf carts out there with the big tires, the lift kit, and the big engine, and they'll do more than 35 miles an hour. So we'll need to, but most of them are already licensed, so that won't. But what we're looking for, it's like my friend there in Union Mill says, we want to take our golf cart, we're going to ride down to the mill pond, have a little picnic lunch, you know. I like that. That's small town America. That's kind of what Laporte County is about. So trust me that we will put together an ordinance that everybody can live with. Tammy, you will serve. You'll help. And Al and Sheriff Boyd, either yourself or somebody from your department, I'll be getting together with everybody yet this week on when we can set up a meeting. So yes, yes we do. In case you're wondering about my stylish new hairdo, this is the lady who takes care of that. Everybody knew the mill knows it.
I think there are people in the community of Union Mills that are wondering if during the Mill Pond Fest, can they ride their golf carts and the Hannah Fest?
You know, the Hannah Fest and the Mill Pond, don't we close off the roads there anyway? Yeah. Sheriff Boyd, don't we close that off? Would we be
south of maybe Water Street, but in Hannah, maybe Thompson, not all the streets.
I know for the Mill Pond Fest, they have a golf cart parade. So does Hannah. Okay, so.
Would that be something we might want to address aside from an ordinance for those festivals that we can close streets and
Some exceptions
make an exception for that
festivals.
festival for an area where the golf carts would be permitted for the length of the festival? Can we do something like that?
I think we've got to be very leery about anything that's not contained in ordinance, because then the county bears a liability if there's some sort of occurrence or incident. But we certainly, you've heard that they will work assiduously in trying to come up with an ordinance that works for the unincorporated area. So, and I would say this, if anyone's got another county besides Stark, it would be helpful for the comparison too. So,
You said Hannah Fest is August 19th, is that what I heard?
9 and 10 for Hannah, and then it's usually September 24, 25, 26 for the Mill Pond Fest. August. Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty aggressive.
Commissioner Brzezinski, what I would suggest you and Sheriff Boyd get together and come up with some solution for these two festivals.
We'll do that.
And then try if we can work on the ordinance once the task force gets together and gives the recommendation.
We'll do that.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I entertain a motion to set up the task force, and Commissioner Brzezinski has volunteered to serve on that. And
So, Mr. President, I move to create a task force with Mr. Mrzinski leading as the Commissioner's representative. And thank you for all the citizens who have joined us this evening.
Second that motion.
If we could try to also figure out a way to accommodate the festivals if the ordinance isn't in full force at that time. I don't know how we can do that, but there's got to be a way.
I got it.
yeah, we'll work that out. And personally, my main concern is public safety, so that people don't get hurt and injured in accidents. So as long as we can take that into consideration and come up with some common sense ordinance, I think that would be very
So,
helpful.
Mr. President, I guess I just want to make a comment. First of all, I want to thank everyone for coming. It's a beautiful summer night, and we've been waiting for summer, and you're here with us, so we really appreciate that. Second of all, I think all of us and all of you, our parents and grandparents, it's about making sure we're safe. I had a really bad experience with a golf cart. My oldest child had his leg broken by someone who backed up over his leg. So he had a broken femur, and he was maybe 11 years old. So it's, people forget that they are motor vehicles and that they can hurt people. So I appreciate your coming and talking about public safety and doing the right thing. If used correctly, golf carts are a great way to get around. If used incorrectly, they can be a danger. So thank you for that, and we'll work with you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. And all of you who came regarding the golf cart, if you want to excuse yourself, that's okay. All right.
Although our meetings are fascinating, of course.
Then we'll conduct the rest of the business. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, ma'am, you can come up to the podium. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Valerie McCline.
Hold on once. We'll give just a minute till it calms down. Okay, all right, thank you.
Valerie, get close. Gotcha.
Good evening. My name is Valerie McCline. I
live at 5255 West, 800 North. I was asked to come to the commissioners' meeting. I was at the drainage board meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I was asked to come and address the meeting here. I've been having ditch problems since 2001, but I've been maintaining it myself since 2007. A little bit longer than that, until I found out that I can get assistance. I've been calling Bob Young from the Highway Department since 2007, every March, asking him when would I be on the schedule to have my ditches clean, and every year he told me that I was not on the schedule. In 2007, we had a real bad storm. My basement flooded. I called Howard Connolly, which is the trustee. He told me there was nothing he could do. He told me I need to call Bob Young. I called Bob Young again. He told me I was no longer on the schedule. In 2008 and 9, I kept calling Bob Young every spring to ask when my ditches were going to be cleaned out. Every year, he told me I was not on the schedule. In 2010, I contacted Mitch Daniels. At the time, he was the governor. He told me he would take care of it. He sent representatives out to my property. They came out and they said, exactly, your property do need to be clean. We also contacted NDOT, and they also came out and said, we will be out to clean your property. During that time, NDOT came out, but NDOT also told me in 2010 that even though they cleaned out the property, it would do me no good if the county didn't clean out the ditches. So the county came back out when we had a real bad storm, and they said that, well, since you called Mitch Daniels, I guess we'll do it. The day they came out to clean my ditches, it stormed real bad. They got an emergency call to go out to Trail Creek to help them. They never came back. I'm still calling every year. Now I have trees in my ditch that are so huge that I can't keep cleaning them out. I can't do it anymore. I've been doing this since 2001. This is 2019. And every year, on record, via email and phone calls, I have been calling Bob Young to get on the schedule to have my ditches cleaned. I've lost my basement. I've lost my property. Every time I redo my driveway because I have blacktop, my taxes go up because Howard County comes out and says you got a new driveway. I don't think so. I've talked to the highway department again in 2018. They came back out and they cleaned 4 miles of ditches running alongside 94. And they told me again in letter form that if Bob Young and his crew do not clean the ditches, I will continue having the same problem. And I am. I start coming here to I talked to Mr. Merzinski, I talked to Dr. Cora, I talked to Sheila, I talked to Mr. Freeman, I talked to Mr. Hendricks. I've sent emails to everyone. I got pictures, and I have not heard anything. Bob Young told me last year in November that he will come and have my ditches cleaned before the spring of 2019, and I have not heard from him. I'm flooded again. All because the ditches are not clean. When I talked to him, I talked to you, Dr. Cora. The very next day, Sharice Sears from Bassick and Gallagher contacted me and wanted to come out to my property on a Friday. She came out Saturday morning. She took pictures, and when she was out, because my land is so saturated, a tree just leaned over on the side of my house and took my gutter system out. No warning. Because the land is so saturated, the trees are just falling over.
You know, I had spoken to Mr. Young after you had called, and I will follow up, and actually I will call you back with a follow-up on that one.
Well, when I was here and I talked to the drainage board told me that they didn't have a claim, and Sharice Sears told me. I called her after I left the meeting, and she said, yes, you do have a claim with the county. So I called back Bob Young, and I said, well, when are you coming? He said, well, I can't talk to you anymore because you have a claim. I said, no, I don't. He said, yes, you do. And so I called Sharice Sears back. She gave me my claim number, and she said, yes, you do have a claim. She said, after you contacted Dr. Cora contacted us. I said, okay, that's all good. When are you coming to clean out the ditches? Then after that, she told me, I was at work, my alarm system went off to let me know that someone was on my property. So I looked at my phone and I saw that Reith and Rowley was on my property and John's Tree Service was on my property. So I called my fiance to ask him where was he at, and he told me he was on the highway. I asked him to turn around and go back to the house. Now, mind you, I have a drive gate, so in order for them to get on my drive gate, they had to push my gate open, messed up the whole motor system on the gate to get out there to find out what was going on. When I got to them, they said, well, we were told to come out here to give an estimate on what it would cost to clean the ditches, fix your driveway, and put everything back to where it was, because the whole natural flow of the property is gone. I've been pumping out my septic tank, emergency pumps out my septic tanks twice a week, because the water is seeping in there much so than in the house. But it is still getting in the house. But I still have to pump out my septic in order for it not to get in the house.
Okay. Chuck, can you, regarding because of this claim and all, can you help put together?
We've, as you know, we had Gallagher Bassett, who is the county's third-party claims adjuster, come out on scene. As you also know, it is a combination issue between both the state and the county, and that's why you went ahead and retained counsel, did you not?
I was told to retain counsel. All I want you to do is clean the ditches. But now that I retain counsel...
Yes, but you were also, it was suggested that you file a notice of tort claim so that the state needs to participate in this solution. It can't be just a county solution. And so I thought you were going to go ahead and file a notice of tort claim.
I haven't talked to you about any tort or anything like that. I've talked to my attorney, and my attorney was talking to Sharice Gallagher. Sharice Gallagher refused to talk to her about anything.
Well, Sharice is now retired, but Sharice, before she retired, specifically suggested to you that you have counsel go ahead and file a notice of tort claim so that the state has some skin in this as well.
No, she didn't.
Well, I'm suggesting to you now, have your counsel file a notice of tort claim so that it's both the county and the state that are named in the notice of tort claim. That way, INDOT has to participate in the solution. It is not just a county. As you've said, you've been dealing with the state. The only way to get their attention is with the filing of a notice of tort claim.
But INDOT they're the only ones that have been helping me. Well, they're the only ones that's been cleaning the ditch.
It is a combination effort that's going to have to be there between the state and the county, and we've tried to suggest a route for you. And so if you would have your counsel file the notice of tort claim, then we can get the state to the table as well.
So you're telling me that I won't have this done. I understand. You're not going to do anything.
No, we've endeavored. That's why we had the county's third-party liability adjuster come out on scene to try to assist you. And didn't you have various communication with Sharice?
Sharice stopped communicating with me after she told me I needed to get counsel. I told her, I don't feel like I need counsel. All I need you to do is come clean the ditches.
I know. Did you not retain counsel?
I had to.
That's right.
But she would no longer communicate with me.
Why don't you have your attorney contact my office, and then we can talk further about the notice of tort claim process so that we can get the state to the table as well. I'm more than happy to communicate with your attorney.
We want to see this resolved because this has been going on for too long.
Long time.
19 years.
Yes, and that's the reason we want to see this resolved. So if you can just have your attorney communicate with the council here, and then we'll try to get this resolved and get whatever help we can get to help resolve this issue.
Okay, because I'm without a furnace. I haven't had a furnace in 3 years. I can't put one in out of fear that I would lose it again.
Yeah. So as soon as you have the council contact Mr. Friedman, then we'll get the ball rolling.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Anybody else from the public? All right, seeing none, department head comments? Are there any department heads who would like to comment? Seeing none, requests. We don't have any old business. We don't have any new business. Consider proposed environmentally restrictive covenant requested by IDEM in connection with Rolling Prairie. County Highway Lust Site, J. Sullivan, County Engineer.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Dave Sullivan, the County Engineer. And I would ask permission to submit to IDEM the ERC form that is a requirement after we had the Lust situation there. After extensive testing, water testing, potable water testing, subsoil water testing, we have come back with no contaminants. And the ERC states that we would like to get a NFA letter that would require us to do no further action on the property and give us the free to do whatever we want with it.
So all this would do is to send the results of the testing and to IDEM and ask them to give us that there are no restrictions
on the property. That's correct.
Restrictions on the property.
That's the request, is for no restrictions on the property.
Right. All right. Mr. Gelski, would you like to comment on this? Yes.
This is Mark Yagelski, Laporte County Council. Thank you. As you know, I'm a representative of the Highway Department for the last 17 years. This was the first project that was handed to me when I first came on board. This is not the first with the water's been clear. We have spent over $200,000 with just testing. That does not count the cost of what we did for cleanup. So the problem I have with this issue is that this is just going to be one more time of filing the same report that we filed over the last 17 years. Mr. Brzezinski, after he came on the council with me, teamed up with the same combination because we're looking at getting rid of this property because it would be beneficial for us to, at some point, we talked about an Amlin base in Rolling Prairie and also for the county highway to have a base out there also for salt, for those type of things for winter. This is a 200-page report. It's interesting because the very first thing it says restrictions. There are no restrictions, but then you have to read over and over and over here. This should exactly be no restrictions. The water has been proven to be clean throughout the years. Now here's the caveats to it. IDEM is a strange group because they hire a lot of younger people and they go to firms right after that, so they don't last very long. So everybody that we've talked to, I can tell you in the last 17 years, does not exist. They move on, they move on, they move on. With the same fear of, there's not just a strongly written letter that the county believes that we are in the right, that if we don't get something, we're just going to get some other group again and we're going to spend the same amount of money going over and over again. You can ask me any question you want, but this is unacceptable. And I'm going to tell you, we can't continue to keep this property the way it is right now, because at some point, if the laws change, then there's going to be another hazard that's going to be on that. It won't stay as simple as the water that we had. And what it was, a simple diesel spill was out there, which needed to be addressed, and we addressed it. It was a 1,000-gallon tank, and we sent deep water pumps down there and pumped all that diesel out of there.
So are you suggesting that we should send this, and if they do not give no restrictions, then we should pursue a different option? Or are you...
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think that there are the firms, if we're going to talk to Mr. Friedman, and we need to address it, because in the past I've come to you how many times?
I know. You have, both of you, and Commissioner Brzezinski's worked on this. What is a little confusing, and I'm sure Jay would concur, after so much work to clean up the property, and to then say there are no restrictions, then they give us a 114-page document that pretty much indicates restrictions. So I'm wondering if we can get a less, what I think Mark's concerned about, and Commissioner Brzezinski's concerned about, is the marketability of the property once this is recorded. And in your discussions with IDEM, I mean, I'm wondering if we can get something that's less invasive as a document to record. That, I guess, is their concern.
Because of the situation, in my understanding, okay, because of the situation there, the ERC has to be filled out. And what I did was try to get all the information together to support the no restriction clause that we asked for in the ERC. If they give us no restrictions, there won't be anything that follows the property, nothing with the deed, which is, I think, what we're after. I don't know that IDEM's going to accept that, so at that point in time, we might have to pursue other angles. I would like to send that, though. I do have two names that I've been dealing with, the gentleman of Valparaiso, one in Indianapolis. I'd like to send that certified mail to both of them and get their response. And at that point in time, I agree, if we might have to seek other options.
Yeah,
but I think it's worth a shot.
I mean, and we want to make it very clear, the county has worked hard to clean up the property. I think we've now been able to certify that through test results, but I think their concern is that the way it's worded, on page 1 it says no restrictions, but then there's 114 pages worth of restrictions that I think is going to make any prospective buyer concerned. It's going to show up in any kind of title search. So I'm wondering if we can get a modified document that may help ease their concerns that they have.
Most of the pages are documentation that I put together in support of the no restriction clause, all the test results and everything else. And this is part of the ERC requirements. They want maps and everything that goes along with that. I can see if they have a short version of that ERC, but that's not going to do a lot of good as far as restricting the size of the document, because I think the ERC is, what, 6 pages maybe?
Yeah, it just but it says absolutely no restrictions on it.
Yes.
So that you can't get that on.
And it looks like it's boilerplate on the rest of the document to say these restrictions above shall be governed in the following, and I think that's the concern.
And I agree. I totally agree with that, but I know. I know what else to do. I put no
following the
restrictions
form
on
as they gave it to you. Let's see if we can get some sort of a modification, I think.
One last suggestion,
Yes.
Commissioners. I know for a fact throughout the years there's 4, 5, 6 IDEM people that have gone to work for engineering firms.
Right.
Maybe we can get somebody who has some expertise in this. There's a lot of engineering firms out there. If they come back with any type of thing, because the value of the land is going to go down, and it's unfortunate. If you've ever been out there, it could be a very valuable property for the water and the housing possibilities that could go out there. So I think that if anything, we can look at one of our engineering firms that have a past IDEM employee and see if because he might know the in and outs of how to get through this.
Well, definitely. So are you in favor of sending this in now, and then if there is a problem, then work with this Plan B?
Absolutely. I would go to council. I've gone to council to ask for more spending on this thing through all the years. I would like, because you're looking, if you take all the money together, we're going to have $1 million of this project.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Pumping out water testing. It's the 5th water testing.
We actually did.
How many years have we been getting clean tests?
For the last, since 2008.
Almost 10 years.
Yeah. They keep requesting stuff. I've been in contact with them. They said, well, we got one more test. We want to check the potable water in the well. We checked that, and it came back clean. And that was the last one that we had done, and that report is in there also. I'll do whatever you want. If you want me to try to get a condensed version.
No, I don't think it's that. I just think that I want to make the commissioners aware that some of them didn't have the history of what we're doing tonight. This is 17 years of history here, and we need to move on. If this can't be the case, I will ask the council to financially support this and move to the next level.
Thank you. Thanks for coming here and sharing your knowledge and expertise on that. I'll entertain a motion to approve this.
Support.
Second.
All in favor? All right. Aye. Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead and send it by registered mail.
I will send it to both individuals who I've been in contact with registered mail.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item B, consider permission to approach the council to replace a vehicle and consider paving proposal for Lure Park with Jeremy Sebecki. Hi, Jeremy.
Hi, Jeremy Sebecki with the County Parks Department. I don't know if you got the email I sent today or not with all the stuff going on, but
we did.
Okay, good. I do have 2 golf carts with dump beds I could use. But, probably wouldn't be able to drive down the road to get it to another park. But anyway, I don't know what else you need me to explain on the vehicle. It's unfortunate that the engine seized up, and I've had 2 different county sheriff's maintenance shop look at it and said it's seized up and it can't be fixed, needs a new engine, and then took it to the dealer to try to find out why, and they basically said the same thing. It was an oil issue. There was oil in it. We changed the oil, we do all the regular maintenance, and it seized up. And then I called Weir's, who works on diesel engines, and they said if the cylinder seized to the linings, it cannot be rebuilt. So
Mr. President, Jeremy's been in my office a couple times to talk about this. It's unfortunate it happens where it happens. It's an engine that should last 300,000 miles, but it didn't.
Yeah.
And he's kind of backed in the corner. He needs a truck. He needs to I would make a motion that we allow him to go on to the council for financing
the vehicle.
Yes.
I'd second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank Thank you. And then the next item was about the paving proposal.
Yeah, so this is for the Lure Park grant. We'd be paving the existing parking lot and adding a new parking lot. We had bids, and Reith Riley was the lowest bid. And obviously, I worked this out with Bob Young too. And on a parking lot, you don't specify mixes, and you don't have the NDOT specs and stuff like that. So just being the history with Reith Riley, I wanted you guys to see that and see if we could go ahead and go with Reith Riley on that project. So.
Motion to approve that project.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Next item is consider referring request of Sheriff's Department for an ordinance to regulate pawn shops and junkyards to joint work session with County Council.
Good evening.
Good evening, Sheriff.
We have provided an ordinance from St. Joseph County that deals specifically with junkyards, scrap yards, dealers in precious metals, and also pawn shops. We are having a difficulty with some pawn shops, dealers in precious metals, scrap yards, and junkyards working with us so we can retrieve potentially stolen items. It's a lifelong or age-old issue with that, and we want something that will help them to be more compliant with law enforcement. There is Indiana code concerning precious metals, but we want to get everybody on the same page. We want to be consistent, and we want those establishments in Laporte County to work more closely with law enforcement on behalf of victims.
John, any comments?
Yes, as the sheriff and Detective Cicero make a point that with all the pawn shops and scrap yards reporting to a third-party entity like Leads Online, it can really help your investigations. Because the detective had asked that there may be a penalty provision, then of course any penalty or financial needs to involve the council. That's why we're suggesting that perhaps you refer it to a joint workshop, council and commission, to discuss particulars on a draft ordinance for the county, because I think the detective was concerned that there be a penalty provision in there for noncompliance, and so any penalties, of course, in an ordinance need to be embedded past the council.
I'll entertain a motion for a joint work session with the county council on this item.
Mr. President, I would move, just as you spoke it, I would move that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Tony Rodriguez, item D and item E, Sierra Solutions contract and OCED coordinator contract.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. President, members of the Commission, Tony Rodriguez, Director of the Office of Community and Economic Development. You have before you first the SARA contract, which is an exciting and long overdue contract to update the county's website, which during the month of June, a joint workshop was held between the council and the commission, and at which time an extensive presentation was given, a lot of question and answer. It is and I'd compliment Commissioner Matias for strong negotiations with this particular vendor and getting a great price. It is a not-to-exceed contract in the amount of just short of $30,000, but we would seek your approval of that contract this evening.
Any questions for Tony regarding the Sierra Solutions contract?
I looked it over, but since it's already been approved by the council, I see no reason why we can't approve it for, is that one signature or?
It has been to the council, the money's been allocated. This was to execute the formal contract.
Right, but is that
council's
one
request
signature
back to
or three?
I believe it's
just one.
Council's request.
I would say we make a motion to approve that with signature by the president of the commission.
So, Mr. President, I would second that, but I also want to give the public some more detail. So you said just shy of 30. We need to be specific, Mr. Rodriguez. So it's $28,985. And then the deliverables, I think, are important because the community is really interested in the updated web page, and in particular the fact that the website will be mobile friendly. I think that's a critical piece. So here's the deliverables. At the conclusion of the project, Laporte County can expect the following deliverables to be met within the scope of work: secure and mobile responsive website, user-friendly site navigation and ADA compliance, digital layouts, mock-ups of the homepage and up to 10 interior page templates, updated design of all 11 pages and interior pages, plus or minus up to 145 interior pages, development of all 11 main interior pages and up to 145 interior, Google Calendar integration, secure contact form submissions, department and staff logins, and back-end navigation functionality training, which I think is critical, and then Google Analytics implementation, so we can see what's resonating with the public, what they want more of, and where we need to continue our work. In addition, one of the conversations we had with the council was that this isn't just going to be something that we hope people, the county staff will maintain. We'll have a super user group where we will have people who have, as part of their job description and assignment, they will be asked to contribute to the website so we can keep it current and contemporary, and it won't be poor Miss Hale chasing after people, asking them for agendas and things. We want to have a point person, and that would be, we'll discuss that in your next item on the agenda, but we'll have a point person who can lead that super user group, and it'll come out of your office so we can make sure that there's an office that's particularly accountable to the public and to the commission for that. So,
Mr. Matias, I just wanted to highlight one word that was repeated twice: secure. Bullet point number 1 and secure in bullet point number 7. So I think with what we have experienced this week, I think those two words are very, very important.
Yeah, Dr. Cora, very well said. We're particularly sensitive to that word secure.
So thank you for highlighting that. So I extend a motion to, I think the motion has already been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony.
And item E, consider OCED coordinator contract. Mr. Rodriguez, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, in follow-up, and as Commissioner Matias has just mentioned, this is a contractual position that's been approved and already budgeted for in the 2019 calendar year. So the funding's already been allocated. It is the contract before you is to fill the community development specialist position, which will be a very detailed position in spearheading the super user group that will coordinate all of the website updating activities, as well as working closely with economic development in working on developing all of our placemaking activities, a lot having to do with social media related account establishment and building a more cohesive and user-friendly portal for us to disseminate information about economic development, community development activities. I just brief, and I know the meeting's been long this evening, but I'm extremely excited about the candidate that you have before you. And Bailey McGrath is a senior at Purdue Northwest. She's the president of their marketing club. Is currently active with 3 small businesses in a joint arrangement where she is interning with those particular companies. Will be finishing her degree this fall. It requires her to leave 2 hours early on 2 days, but she's going to make that time up. I couldn't be more excited because of the skill level and the leadership qualities that this particular individual brings to the table. It is not a full-time permanent position. It is a contractual position, and I'd be happy to answer any questions related to such.
This was brought to the attention of the county council, and it's already in the budget, and it's a contract position rather than a full-time employed position. And I have looked at CV, and I think she is very well qualified for this position, so I will entertain a motion to...
Mr. President, I move to approve the contract for Bailey McGrath as the coordinator for the Office of Community and Economic Development. And just reiterate what Tony said, we've really looked hard for just the right skill level and the right person. I think it's an opportunity for Laporte County to really focus on what is very special about us, not just for outsiders, but for our own folks to know what our assets are, and then also to make sure that we're presenting our best best self to the internet world, so that people, when they are looking to find a place to raise a family or looking for a place to grow their business, they know that Laporte County is a very friendly and receptive place for that kind of growth. So I would move to approve the contract.
I'll second the motion.
Yeah, thank you very much. One comment I wanted to make was both these things that we are doing, the Sierra Solutions contract, which is mobile friendly, and bringing Bailey McGrath. That way there is presence on the social media and on the website, and also to, of course, promote economic development, both attracting new business and retention of existing businesses. All of these are geared towards attracting younger folks to our community, or young couples, young families who can make Laporte County their home, and that's our future. So I really am happy about this development. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item F, consider retroactive approval of Commission and Council President's declaration of emergency repairs authorization of $50,000 in emergency funding for repairs, restoration of county's computer system.
Motion to approve that message.
Support.
Sean, anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I think that I appreciate the fact there's a motion and a second. The declaration of emergency repairs was signed by both the President of the Council and the Commission on July 8th for emergency repairs to be effected using cumulative capital development or CCD funds, and so your motion simply makes of record retroactive approval of that emergency declaration.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Item G, status update from IT Director Darlene Hale. As most of you know, we have been through this cyber attack on our computer systems, and Darlene Hale and her team have been working very hard for the last 10 days, and Darlene will, can you give an update on where things are and how we can get back to our pre-cyber attack status?
Okay. I have a statement. So, as you know, the county discovered we were impacted by ransomware on July 6th. Once we discovered the ransomware that day, we immediately started efforts to identify the malware, secure our environment, and develop a plan for restoration. So the county unplugged portions of the network on Saturday, July 6th, to limit the spread of the malware. The quick response limited the spread of the malware and allowed systems to be brought back online sooner than they would have been otherwise. The forensic investigators that we have contracted with was also retained to determine the nature and the scope of the incident, and whether any employee or resident information was subject to unauthorized access. This investigation is ongoing, but as to the best of our knowledge, and the forensic team has, to the best of their knowledge at this point, no personal data, employee or citizen has been taken. As the investigation is ongoing, we do not know yet how we were infected, whether it was through brute force or whether an employee brought something in, clicked on an email or something. That's the forensic investigators will, give us a report on that. As part of our initial assessment, we determined that our system backups were encrypted, deleted, or otherwise made unavailable as a result of the incident. Not all backups were encrypted. We do back up a lot to the cloud. Just some very large backups that we don't back up to the cloud. They're backed up here locally. Part of the investigation, we hope to determine the cause of the unavailability of the backups also. Therefore, to restore the county's data, we needed to obtain a decryption key. So we paid the ransomware. We contacted the FBI first to see if any of they have a pool of keys that they have collected from other entities, companies that have paid the ransom previously. So they ran ours through their our lab. None of their keys worked. The FBI, then notified us that wasn't possible, that they did not have the decryption. So at that time, our forensic investigating team and the Mullen Group, that is, we've been working through with our insurance, contacted the ransomware, the bad actors, and negotiated the terms down, and we got a decryption key. We were then required, hold on. On July 11th, after confirming that it was the only way to get our data back for the very large backups, we paid the ransom. The actor promptly provided the key. Forensic investigator provided us with the key after verifying the key worked and held no additional malware. We immediately commenced efforts to decrypt our data. The county is bringing all departments, including affected departments, back online as data is decrypted and security is confirmed. Fortunately, because we caught the virus almost immediately, many departments were not encrypted as we shut down the domain. We only had, I think there was 12 PCs that were encrypted out of almost 500. So it was a very good margin percentage there on the PC level. The servers were about 20 servers that got encrypted, and we have about 20 that did not. Currently, we only have 4 servers left offline, one of which is still decrypting. The other 3, we are verifying security and the health of the server before we bring it back on. So we're down to 4. I do greatly appreciate all the notes of support from department heads, elected officials, employees, and members of the public who have praised our department in response to this attack. We continue to restore and bring back online additional systems. We have been told our third-party experts that recovery efforts are ahead of schedule as compared to the recovery timelines of entities impacted by similar events. We have been told it takes up to a month or 2. So we're actually ahead of schedule, on bringing our systems back online.
Darlene, thank you very much for that concise.
Can I say
yeah, please go ahead.
One more thing? Actually, the FBI contacted me today, and I notified the agent. We intend fully, at the direction of the commissioners and the council, and to cooperate with the FBI. So anything that our forensic team is getting, the FBI will also get a copy of that, so that they can go after these bad actors. That that if they find them, they can prosecute them if they're in the United States.
Thank you very much. The emails were on today, and
yes.
Of course the emails are functioning. From what you have described, only about 3 of the 20 servers are still non-operational. About 16 or 17 are already operational. So I think we are about 80% of the way there. And so, do you anticipate in this coming week we'll be pretty much caught up and be back?
We hope so by the end of the week, but I can't guarantee it. I mean, we have been working weekends, nights, really hard. The whole team has to be able to get these functions back online as soon as possible. The one thing with this ransomware, this virus, is it hits on Saturday morning to try to make sure that, come Monday morning, nothing is working. So, luckily we did catch it on Saturday afternoon, shut everything down, so we were actually able to open the doors on Monday morning, July 8th, and conduct court. Financial system was back up. The tax system was back up and functioning. We did have the domain still unavailable, but we were able to get a lot of the offices to where they could still somewhat function, just not fully function. So we're hoping by the end of the week, but I can't guarantee it, depending, and especially with the one server that is still decrypting, the Laserfish, it contains a lot of data, a lot of images, so that does take long. It's a big server.
I appreciate the efforts you and your team have put in this last 10 days. And also, Shaw, thank you for your help. And John Jones, our insurance agent on record, who brought the team from Pennsylvania to help us. And considering the magnitude of the problem we had, I'm grateful that with the help and cooperation of all my fellow commissioners, the council members, other elected officials, we have been able to quickly get back on track, and the county government is working, and hopefully in this coming week we'll be fully operational as far as the IT is concerned. Any comments?
I have a few comments. First of all, I reiterate what you just said about thanking Darlene and her team. I've only been on board this is my 7th month, so I was really impressed to see the teamwork of your team and then all of the departments pitching in and helping each other. I think, when something, this was a crisis and it's a crime, I think that's something that can't be lost in this. It's not someone's mistake. It's a crime against the people of Laporte County, and I think that's, when you think about that, $130,000 that someone tried to steal from our taxpayers really makes me mad, and I'm sure it makes a lot of people who are in the audience and here listening mad. But we got over our emotions and we put our heads together and really came up with an excellent strategy. I appreciate all of the hours and the work your team did. It's pretty phenomenal. We've learned some things though, and I think that's an important takeaway. And one would be that we need to beef up our staff training so that staff gets specific cyber training. And I know that's been on your docket, and you've done a good job of that. We need to figure out a way where they have to take cyber training, and it has to be recurring, whether it's quarterly or when we get a new employee, and then every year they have mandatory training. I think that's really important. And then creating preventive mechanisms in your systems, which I'm sure we'll talk more about. But then there's another silver lining, and I talked about the exceptional work, but the strange silver lining is that it has created the ability for us to do business the old-fashioned way. And I have to say, this week we all talked on the phone a lot. We walked into people's offices and chatted with them. So as much as we text and we email and hope people get our messages through osmosis and often miscommunicate because we aren't looking at each other eye to eye, we actually did a really good job doing county business, maybe not as efficiently because we didn't have technology up and running 100%, but we all had an old-fashioned week of doing government business. So I think that was a benefit and connected a lot of people who may not actually have a lot of FaceTime. So thank you, Darlene, for your leadership. Really appreciate it.
All right. I would like one more comment. There is some information over here that is available for, ransomware and the Ryuk specifically. It is a huge ongoing investigation with the FBI for the different entities and companies that have been hit by that, ours included. And I know that they are going to be contacting us in the future here shortly. Also, I would personally like to thank the commissioners, the council, Joey, Shaw, everybody that was available to me on Saturday, July 6th, in the later afternoon when I was trying to get and John Jones, everybody took the calls. We started the process immediately July 6th to be able to get this process, get recovery coming as soon as possible.
Thank you.
I think we pretty well beat it, but I think that I hope the FBI can identify them, shut them down, prosecute them, or have the Air Force call an airstrike on them, whatever it takes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think that brings us to the end of the agenda. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Matias.
Just a couple comments. The county fair, for those of us who went, was really another remarkable fair. Great to see the 4-H kids, just the pride. I had a great time taking pictures and watching the animal auction and all of that. And then just yesterday we had an amazing good fortune of celebrating a ribbon cutting in Westville for North Point Development and the Dollar General Development, a $24 million investment into Laporte County, 80 jobs in the next couple of months, and then another 50 jobs were just announced as an expansion of some of the space. So, those are great jobs with benefits, and I think it's a sign that LaPorte County's on a roll. So thank you, Mr. Rodriguez, Mr. Reardon, for your leadership on that. We appreciate that.
Thank you. Commissioner Brzezinski.
Yeah, it's mentioned the fair. I was there every day. And it was kind of weird that as the week went on, we said, every year, but as far as I can remember, the fair always has one day when we have horrible thunderstorms all day, and it kind of ruins everybody's day. And this year it didn't happen until about 20 minutes till 10 on Saturday. Right when it was almost over, we finally got the rain. So tradition lives on. It was great. A great fair. Next year will be the 175th. It'll be a really major deal. And so we'll look forward to that. Thank you.
I had a few observations during this week. As we face this crisis, I was really gratified by how well this team came together and worked together. The commission, the council, the elected officials, like our auditor, has always been involved in these efforts. So thank you very much for all your help. Yesterday we had a great ceremony, the Midwest Trading Center that was opened in Westville. It's a great example of cooperation and collaboration between two entities, the North Point Development and Dollar General and the county government all coming together. I think that's the kind of cooperation and collaboration we look forward to in the future through our Office of Economic Development with the help of Tony Rodriguez, Matt Reardon, and so we look forward to more events like that, and which will help job creation. We had an insurance committee meeting today for our health insurance, and the good news to report there is our spending is $500,000 less than anticipated for the first 6 months of this year. So that's a blessing. I hope everybody stays healthy, and we'll continue that trend. The one last item I wanted to mention was our county clerk, Ms. Kroback here, Kathy Kroback, brought to our attention a cybersecurity initiative that has been started by the Secretary of State, and we as a county will be participating in it. It's called FireEye, to help to make sure that the elections that are coming up next year that'll be protected, and we'll have cybersecurity. So with our recent experience, I think it's very important that we participate in that, and we will. And we'll keep you abreast on what's going on. So thank you all for coming, and I'll entertain a motion for Jim. Yes, thank you. Thank you.